The next language we'll look at is the C programming language. Now, we haven't seen any examples of this just yet, but this is a language that I think is worth looking at. It's more used in the system type environment, so it's more of a lower level in terms of the high-level languages. It's still a high-level language, but it's a bit lower because we can directly work with memory addresses. So to find this under our website again, we go to the C link right here. So we'll click on that. This may take another second or two. All right, and we get the same setup as we had before with Java. There are some key differences though. So we're already given an import statement, and this is #include stdio.h. This takes care of all of our input-output functions or methods. So we don't have to create an object of the scanner class in this particular case. So this takes care of the importing for us. We still have a main, except now it's just int main. And in this language, because the type of the method is an integer, it expects us to return or send back some integer. So by default, we do return 0. So that's why this return 0 statement is there. We have to return some integer to satisfy this requirement right here. And then we see that we do have our hello world example once again. So printf in this case is the function that allows us to print hello world. So anything that's in the quotes would be printed. And then this /n, this is our new line character. So in Java we just had system.out.println, and that would print this character, but in C we would have to physically enter in the new line character, which is just a / and then an n. So if I were to compile and run this just to show that this does print hello world, so it compiles, and I'll click execute, and sure enough it does print hello world. So let's write the same examples before, where we would have the user input 2 integers, and then we'll take the sum of those integers, and then we would print out that sum. And what we're going to see here is that there are some key differences with how we handle the input and output compared to Java, but there will be some parts that are similar. So once again, I encourage you to follow along to make sure that you do have at least a better understanding of how to write a C program. So just like in Java, we have to declare variables. So I'll declare my a, b, and sum as integers, and fortunately the syntax is the exact same as in Java. So I can do int space a, comma, b, comma, sum, and C is another language that ends with a semicolon. So this part is fine. Now how I handle the input, that is going to be done a little bit differently. So to do any printing, as we saw before, we need the printf statement. So I'll do printf, and then I'll do in quotes enter a. So I'll try to set this up just like we did in Java. So the only difference really here so far is just I use printf instead of system.out.print. Now the actual input statement is a little different. So instead of doing console.nextInt, I'm going to use a function that's called scanf. I'm sorry, 1f. There we go. And the way this works is it's actually broken up into 2 parts. The first part is this string where we contain placeholders for what type of value we want. So instead of having a method that tells us we're going to input an integer, I have to put in a very specific placeholder in these quotes that says I want to input an integer or a double or a character. Now the way the placeholder works is I would start by entering a percent sign and then a specific character that stands for integer. And in C, that character is D. Why is it D? I don't know. I'm going to guess that maybe it stands for digits or decimal or something. I'm not so sure. But this %D in quotes says that we're going to input an integer. And then I would have a comma after the quote. And then I would put in the variable that I want to store this integer. So I can put in A. Now this by itself actually does not work. I have to add one more thing in here. And this gets into some more nitty-gritty details about the C programming language. But anytime I use scanf and I want to store in an integer, I have to put an ampersand in front of the A. And the reason why is in C, as I mentioned, we're a lot closer to interacting with the memory compared to other programming languages. And what this ampersand does is saying get me the memory address of this variable. So what we're doing here is this first part is saying that we're going to input an integer, and this part is telling me where in my computer am I storing that integer. So by just putting an A by itself is not enough. I have to actually specify the memory address for it. And that's what this ampersand does for us. It gives us the memory address of the variable A. So just remember that if you do write a C program and you're going to store an integer or a character or a double, you have to put an ampersand in front of the variable in your scanf statement to make this work. Okay? Now we'll set this up just like in Java, so I do need to print a new line. So we'll do printf, and then I have to explicitly do the /n to make this work. And then we'll do the same thing for B. So I'll do printf, enter B, colon, space, and then scanf %d, because I want to input an integer, comma, then ampersand B, and then another printf. All right, so now I've done my input. So now we just need to add the A and B into a sum. And that's the exact same thing as in Java. So I can do sum equals A plus B. So no differences there. So now when I do my print, I can do printf, because that's my output. Now the way I handle output here, if I want to include the values of A, B, and sum, are a little different too. Now I don't do string concatenation like I do in Java. So I'm not going to do like plus A, plus quote, and so forth. But we use these same placeholders that we used in scanf. So any place that I want to print a variable, I'm going to include a placeholder instead. And then later on, I'm going to specify exactly which variables I want. So I'm going to say here the sum of, now I would want to put A here, but instead I'm going to put in the placeholder that corresponds to A. So since A is an integer, I'm going to do %d, and then I'm going to say and then here's where I would normally put B, but I need a placeholder instead, so I'm going to do %d is %d, because this is where the sum would go. And then we'll do the new line character here. Now what comes next is a comma, and then now I'm going to specify exactly what variables I want to print. So the first value I put in here is going to be put in place of this %d. The next value I put in is going to be in place of this %d. And then the third thing we're going to put in here is going to be in place of this %d. So let's say I put in an A right here. What this means is when I print the sum of an integer and an integer is an integer, the value of A is going to be printed in place of this first %d. And then if I want to do this one, I would need to have a comma. And then I could put in the value that I want to print. So that's going to be B in this case. And then for this one, I need to print the value of sum. So I do another comma, and I'll enter sum. So this is going to take care of printing the sum of A and B is sum. The big thing here, remember, is that if I want to print a variable, I have to use a placeholder inside the quotes, and then afterwards with a comma, I would specify what that value is. So yeah, this is very different from what we're doing in Java. So we're already seeing some big differences with some of the different programming languages. But what we're going to see here is it's going to do the exact same thing as what we did in Java. So let's go ahead and compile this to make sure that it works. No compile errors. So I'm going to click on execute. So I need to enter an A. So let's do the same example as before. So I'm going to enter 5 and hit enter. Then I'm going to enter B. So I'm going to do 6 and enter. And here we go. The sum of 5 and 6 is 11, which is what we wanted to print here. So 5 was printed here. The 6 that was in B was printed here. And the 11 that was stored in sum gets printed here. So sure enough, this program does give us the sum of two values that were entered by the user.